So today we're talking about resources for military spouses. I have a guest, Reyna Worthy, who is the founder of the Desk of a Navy Wife. Through her work, she empowers military spouses by providing authentic and essential information, practical tips, resources, and personal stories to navigate military life with confidence and ease. She does this through a podcast and a blog, and she aims to build and foster a supportive community where every military spouse feels informed, connected, and valued. Such an incredible endeavor and so very important for our community. So, without further ado, hello. Thank you so much for being with me, Reina. So, just to give everybody an idea of who you are, what you bring to the table, I know there's going to be a lot more that you bring to the table that you can say in the next, 30 seconds, but why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, whatever feels
Yes,
important to you?
absolutely. So, hi everyone. My name's Reyna Worthy. I'm a military spouse. I have been since 2014. By day, I like to say that I help the military community as a government contractor on a grander scale. And then on my evenings, nights, and weekends, I like to help military spouses. So, I'm an advocate. I enjoy bringing resources and tips to the military spouse community and being authentically myself and helping other military spouses do the same.
Wow, that was so succinct. I'm really impressed. I can't do that. I have a
Thank
different
you.
answer every time I answer the
Every single
question.
time. I'm a training and development, so I am very familiar with doing recordings.
You've got it nailed down. I'm impressed.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So today's going to be like a super laid back conversation. Just really relatable stuff. I think
Hmm.
these are the most powerful conversations. We always want to leave lessons, but when people can relate to us, relate to our
Right,
story, it just makes us feel less lonely because it
right.
really can be entrepreneurship, solopreneurship, military lifestyle. All of it can be very, very um, lonely and just feel like, who else is out there doing this with
Hmm.
me? Somebody just reach out, like
Hmm.
somebody give me something to latch onto. Sometimes, right? We all get there at some point.
Right.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about what led you into your journey?
Absolutely. So, in the very beginning, when I first became a military spouse, I didn't know anything at all. I wasn't familiar with the military lifestyle. I didn't know anything about an ombudsman well until I was maybe 3 years married in. And so, as the years went on, I felt, hey, military spouses kind of come off where it feels like an afterthought. And I wanted to change that. And so, that's really what helped me dive into my business and creating my business because I wanted it to be solely for military spouses, again being authentic and practical with giving them information and
Yeah.
stop it to where it feels like we are constantly having to look for an answer and maybe getting 30 different answers. So I wanted to create a platform both online, virtually on a website, but also through my podcast where they don't have to do the searching. They just go and I'm relaying as much information as I can to get resources about career, resources about just normal military life and things that you may come upon. And lastly, about self care, because that's important too.
Oh my gosh, you said so many things that I want to dive
Yeah.
into with you. Okay, so let's start
Yeah.
with the resources. So
Yes.
here's a little bit about my own personal story, just so you can see how this relates. And I don't just jump into the middle of my own story that was
Yeah,
happening in my head.
absolutely.
Like, wait a minute. So I was in the army when I met my
Mhm.
husband. And so when I got out, I was done. Like I was so done. I had served a little over 6 years, a deployment to Iraq. I am so done with the military life. Not that I didn't take a lot of amazing things with me. I did, but that's besides the point. I was done with it and I'm like, I'm separate now. Like
Right.
I have moved out of the army. I am on to other things. That's it. And then my husband, boyfriend at the time hit me with I want to reenlist. And so I was like, okay, deep breaths, right? So anyways, he did. The agreement was that if I was going to leave behind all of the things that I had started to work for, like,
Hmm.
I had started a career in the government sector. I was going to school to become a baking and pastry chef, and I was going to open my all the things, right?
Yeah.
And the deal was, if I was going to leave that behind, he was going to commit to the 20 years so that we had a
Right.
solid foundation on the other side, and we were both okay with that. And then, but what happened was, even though I became a military spouse,
Hmm.
I was just so averse to wanting to be anything in the military. I didn't want to be in the army. I didn't want to be an army wife. I didn't want to be
Hmm.
army anything anymore. And
Yeah.
so I very much separated myself. It's just in the last few years that I've brought myself back into the community, specifically of military spouses, and I'm realizing, holy cow, there is
Yeah.
so much to be done here. There were so many resources that I could have made use of that I didn't because I was like, psh,
Right.
no more for me.
Right.
But I was so closed-minded, so I was so closed off to all of it, and I had no idea the resources that were available. Now, as a
Hmm.
military spouse entrepreneur, I am finding all of these resources, and
Hmm.
oh my gosh, the importance of knowing that they're out there.
Right.
So the fact that you bring and there are so many, and
There
sometimes
are.
it's like, where do I start? Right now, I'm taking
Yes.
3 different courses for military
Yes.
spouse entrepreneurs, and they're all very, very different. The relay is
Hmm.
different, the platform is different, the
Hmm.
audience is different. And I definitely would say that going through this experience with 3 different ones will help me to identify what might best serve my audience or other women that I connect with based
Right.
on what they need.
Right.
But to have all 3 of them thrown at you at once is like, holy cow, what do I
It's
do with all that? That's a
crazy.
lot.
Yeah. And honestly, like even with you saying you've had, 3 different things and you had to do the research, I feel like even when you start to dive into those resources that are available, you'll start finding the people that's giving you the information may not even be affiliated with the military, or they may be a veteran themselves. And nothing against veterans, right? We're here, our service members, we're here, we stand beside them, right?
Yeah.
Alongside them as military spouses. But it's different when it comes from an actual military spouse who's lived this life as far as hey, I've been a military spouse for this long. I've gone through deployments. I've raised children by myself as well through deployments or in a different country. And I think when they hear it from someone who's lived the lifestyle, or they're getting resources from someone who's actually done the digging to get those resources for them, it's completely different. It's a completely different feeling. And
I
so that's
agree.
really ultimately been my goal.
I love that so much.
Thank
I
you.
think there's a different level of connection and a different level of trust. I think this is true for anything, right? From military spouse
Right.
to military spouse, from entrepreneur to entrepreneur, from
Right.
New Yorker to New Yorker, whatever it is, right? Anything that you relate to in life, having
Yeah.
a person on the other side who has been in that same space in some way, it makes it easier to connect and build a level of trust faster.
Right. Right.
And so, yes, having that kind of information
Hmm.
distilled and, pulled together from another military spouse, that's an incredible asset to have.
Thank you. Yes,
Thank you.
I've been diving deep into it. Again, it's been through the years where it's like, man, no one knows about this, or and I'll mention it. I was the go-to when I lived overseas. I'd say something to my friends because they'll ask, oh, who's hiring, or how do I go about this? I want to go back to school, and I'm like, oh, did you know? Like I was the did you know person,
Yeah.
and they're like, how did you know that? Or and I used to just do research on my own. I'm also outside of being a spouse, right? I went to school. I have my master's in human resource management. So I have a whole nother, lifestyle and daytime and, dream and visions as well. And I just want to encourage military spouses not to forget about them. Yes, you're a spouse, but you have dreams and aspirations, go for them. Absolutely.
I love that
Thank
message.
you.
It so much relates to what I do. A
Mm-hmm.
life coach for military spouse entrepreneurs, right? So many of us, it's not even some of us have that message in our head somewhere for some reason. Like, I have to support my spouse, I have to run the household. And
Mm-hmm.
we kind of, to some degree, do those
Right.
things. A pretty big
All
degree
the
of
time.
us, right? We do those things.
Right.
The thing is, this whole idea of work-life balance, so many people don't fully comprehend that it is not because they're dumb, right? Just because like the reality is so hard to grasp that it is
Mm-hmm.
possible for them
Mm-hmm.
because they already have so much on their plate, right? And so to
Mm-hmm.
think, there's space for me in this too. No, there's
Yeah.
not. I can tell you there's not because I just spent my whole day attending to other people. I didn't get
Right.
everything done and I'm exhausted. So where am I going to find the time and the energy, right?
Right.
And the fact is, of
Right.
course, you and I know it is there. It
Mm-hmm.
requires boundaries and shuffling and that self-care that you
Yes.
mentioned. So
Yes.
let's talk about that because you talked about self-care.
Absolutely.
Give me the rundown and your perspective of
Mm,
self-care.
okay. Yeah. I feel sometimes when it comes to self-care, I think it's that cliche people feel like, oh, you need to go to the spa, or, make sure you take a shower every day. Those to me, when it comes to like at least the shower, those are basic things, right? Necessities and needs. I don't I don't necessarily consider that self-care
No,
because
I'm with you.
we should be
I'm
doing
with
that
you.
every day.
Yeah.
For me, I think self-care is really taking that time away from your immediate environment and advocating for yourself. So it could be, hey, I need 10 minutes to kind of just breathe, or I would like to read a book for the next 10 minutes, or not do anything for 10 minutes, or do journaling or affirmation cards, whatever that self-care looks like to you, but it actually being to where you're in tune to yourself and you're focusing on what you need, what you would like, and if you have some dreams or goals, taking the time to focus on that, and that is caring for yourself. That's how I look at it. And so I always encourage, spouses, and even on my platform, please speak up for yourself, advocate for yourself, and you'll feel, it may not be easy, but you're going to feel so much better at the end of the week or at the end of the day just for having that little bit of time to focus on you.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. That is very much my definition of self-care. The
Yeah.
the showers, right? We can turn the
Right.
I'm not going to go too deep into this because I really want to hear your perspective. But like a shower we
Okay.
can turn into self-care, but a shower essentially is personal hygiene.
Exactly.
That's the maybe the lowest level
That's
of
the minimum.
self-care.
Yeah, right.
Right. But when you give back to yourself spiritually and emotionally
Hmm.
and mentally, and you take the time to do the things that bring you joy and that actually fill your cup and or rejuvenate you, all of
Right.
those things that you mentioned, that's where self-care really has the impact that we need.
Yes.
I love a spa day. I'm going to get a
Right.
massage next week. I've got
Okay.
nothing against that. It's not going to fill my cup. It's going to relax
Right.
my muscles. It's not going to
Right.
ease my mind if I don't let it, right? We've got to find those ways to quiet the mind, to calm the
Hmm.
body, to feed back into our energy where it's been depleted and all of those things.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. What is
Absolutely.
your favorite way
Oh,
to give back to yourself?
ooh. So I would say for me, it's really being able to, okay, so it's still like working, but to me, it's not work.
Okay.
I enjoy going into Canva and like building out different things for my website, different resources, and how I can make sure I showcase those resources because to me, that's showing my creative side. And when you are used to like your 9 to 5, where you're not necessarily always able to be creative or have that time to be creative, to me, being able to showcase my talents and skills in art, like that's my self care. And sometimes it's 10 minutes, sometimes it's a little bit longer, but my husband and I have a whole conversation. Hey, when this wall goes up, I need like 15 minutes to be able to be creative, and unplug in that sense. And then when the wall goes back down, then, it's back to family time. It's back to making sure I'm focusing on, my children, my husband, the household, and us being able to spend time together.
I love that. So what
Thank
I hear
you.
you saying is you've got some beautiful boundaries in place.
Yes, I do. I have to, for my children, if they need to physically see something, right? Because they're young, they're thinking, hey, if I have access to mommy, that means she's available all the time.
Yeah.
But when you actually put like a physical barrier, they know. And if you have a conversation in advance, hey, when this wall is up, that means mommy's, doing something. Or if my light is red, that means I'm speaking right now. And so we have to have our quiet voice. So
Yeah.
something to be able to show them boundaries so that when they get older, they're able to show boundaries as well.
Yeah, I love
Hmm.
that. So doing it for you in the here and now and teaching
Hmm.
them how to be in life, how to treat others, how to,
Yes,
you know, um, experience life so that they teach others how to treat them.
yes.
Yes, that is so pow how old are your kids?
My kids, my daughter's 8 years old
Okay.
and my son is 5, and they keep me busy
Sure they do.
for sure. I'm full of energy all the time, and my daughter's in that moment of wanting to have more mommy daughter time. So I make sure I set aside, that okay, on Friday or on Saturday we're gonna go do this together. We're gonna have a girls' day, and I wanted to allow her to come to me. That way, it never came off like I was trying to force her,
Yeah.
to have time with me. So when she says, "Hey, mommy, I want to paint our nails today" or something, we get together and we paint our nails, or we watch TV. Whatever it is that she wants to do, we make sure we go and we do it if we are able to.
That's so precious.
Thank you. Yeah,
I
I
love that.
love them, and they are, like I said, they're full of energy.
Yeah. Yeah, I relate to that. Mine are just my son just turned 12 and my daughter
Oh
is on the brink of
wow,
turning 10. So
on
in
the brink. Okay, okay.
one
So
month actually.
yeah,
Should
so
be.
they're a little bit older. Yeah, so how does that feel
Yeah.
like independent?
So
Independent
I
boys.
went through what you went through, right? So
Yeah.
I've been in some form of entrepreneurship now since 2018. I started in
Hmm.
Etsy shops. But same thing, I had to create boundaries. At that time,
Hmm.
I hadn't had, coaching, so I didn't really know self-care and boundaries in the way that I do today.
Hmm.
But I had to, to some degree, I had to. Otherwise, I wouldn't have ever gotten anything done.
Right.
Some point, I'm sure I was like, hey babe, can you, take care of the kids for a
Right.
little while so I can go
Right.
sand some wood or something?
Right.
Because I was making home decor signs at the time.
Yeah.
But since becoming a life coach, I really did learn to set the boundaries and in-depth self-care and all of the things. And one of those boundaries that I set was now we have a home office in the house that we are
Hmm.
in, and because we are retired, so we actually are in a place now that we've bought and landed, and we can set
Yeah.
up the
Yeah.
way we need it to be. But my doors, I have double doors here on my office, and my son actually made me the sign because I had a little sign that said "Do not disturb, mommy's recording" or something
Yeah.
like that, and I let them know, had the conversation. I started my life coaching journey about 4 years ago, so they were close. They were about
Hmm.
same age as my oldest was about the same age as your oldest at the
Is
time.
mine now? Okay.
Yeah, and so my son made me a sign. He drew this little owl on it, and it doesn't make any sense, but it was his, and it's adorable, and I love it.
Yeah.
It's still up there today. It says, "Do not disturb the owl." They don't call me an owl, but that was his form of creativity,
Mhm.
so I'm rocking it. I love it.
Right.
But yeah, and that's exactly what it looked like at that stage. And now they're so much older, so they make their own meal if they get hungry while I'm in here in a
Right.
meeting or doing a recording, or they, turn on the TV for a little while or read a book or whatever.
Right.
The independence is incredible when it
Yes,
comes.
I know. I feel like, right now they're kind of going through that phase of wanting to be independent. And so I like to say I'm still holding their hand, maybe not fully, maybe a few more fingers
Yeah.
than hands, but
Yeah.
like I said, I definitely want to set out that time because I tell it on, my podcast, my platform, that it's all about work, meal, life balance. And
Yeah.
that's really ultimately what it is, how you can balance all three. Like you said earlier, it's definitely possible. It's just really setting up that time to do it.
Yes.
It falls on you to do that.
Right. And the thing is, it can look so hard to do that when you've started a business where those things weren't part of the foundation. And
Hmm.
it's like you've going back to the beginning and taking the time to restructure. And I understand for a lot of people that can feel like a deterrent. That's hard, that's frustrating, it's not sexy.
No, it's not
Nobody wants to go back to the beginning, right?
at all. Or restart your schedule, feel like you get somewhere, and then have to restart it again. So,
Yeah. But
yes.
like you've experienced, and like I've experienced, when you
Hmm.
do have it set up where you've taught your family the
Hmm.
boundaries that you need to have between your workspace and your life space and time and
Hmm.
all of those things as they grow, even if your kids are young, you start instilling those things now. And in a few years, your 5-year-old's a little boy, right?
Yes.
He's
Hmm.
gonna make his own peanut butter and jelly sandwich while mom is in a
Right.
meeting because he's
Yeah.
hungry and he knows mom's working and he's Mr. Independent. He can do those things.
Right.
And
And he wants to try to do that now at 5. So
right, yeah,
I'm in
that's
here with him,
incredible.
but he's like, no, no, I have it. It's like, okay, but it's still a butter knife. We're still going through this together. But yeah.
Right, right. But he's doing it and you're encouraging it. I love that.
Yes,
And so when we're able to let go a little bit and let them have that independence and trust that they're small, but they understand big things.
they do.
So when we
They
say,
do.
hey, I need 20 minutes. And if we're honest with ourselves about that, like I told them 20, I owe them, the time after I have
Yes.
promised the 20, then they learn to respect that. Mom said she's going to do something and she came and she did. So,
Yeah.
I'm good. I'll wait.
Yes.
So
And
it's all
it's teaching them that patience for sure,
yes.
as well. Because as they're waiting for you to get done doing what you're doing, they're like, it's a routine, it's patience, it's something, like you said, they can take as they get older and teach others as they get older too, or their own classmates the same thing. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny how they'll talk to their classmates about, oh, no, 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 that's not how you do it.
Exactly.
Go
They're like
talk to
mini
them.
teachers
Yeah.
almost.
Your classmates don't really like to be told. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you that you took that
Right.
lesson. And yeah, you probably shouldn't boss your classmates around.
They're future leaders. That's how I
Yeah.
look at it. Future leaders.
100%. Okay. So we talked a lot about balance, really more personal stories. But if you had somebody in your life who was like, I'm not finding the balance, how do you
Mhm.
think you might be able to help guide them through that?
I think if I had, like, if it was a friend calling me, hey, I'm having some difficulty struggling with balance, I'd first ask them, one, what are you trying to balance? So, what are you ultimately struggling with? And probably encourage them to jot it down. Hey, what are the top 5 things that you're struggling with? And then I want you to write down like your top priorities. So, what's very meaningful to you? If it's something that's like, hey, I know that has a tight deadline, or if I know this is something that's very important or significant, then that's a top priority. And if it's someone else's possible needs or they could potentially do it on their own, is that really a top priority for you? Or is that something that, you can get around to? So I would encourage them to like categorize it and what is it? The Eisenhower tower, I think the name of it is. It's one
Oh,
where
you
you
got
kind of put
me.
everything into your 4 quadrants and
Okay.
you have to prioritize, try to figure out what it is that you need to tackle right now. And is it an urgency for you or is it an urgency for the other person? And once you're able to balance that out, I feel like you can ultimately balance anything, just creating that and then creating a schedule around those priorities. So that's typically what my feedback would be. That's something I practice. So
Yeah.
hopefully it helps someone.
Oh, I'm sure it will. I think it's brilliant. It's simple is what it is. And not
Yeah.
easy, right? Like
No,
we're not going to confuse simple and easy, but
you're
it's
right.
simple. It's straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
When you can see this stuff, especially when you, like you said, get it out on paper, write it
Mm-hmm.
down, when you can see it, when you can visualize it, it makes it easier to decipher your way through it.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
love that. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
that tip. Appreciate
Yes.
that. All right. So let's talk about goals. You good
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I've actually been doing a lot of goal setting recently, so it's at the top of my mind anyways. So let's
Mm-hmm.
dive in. Tell me about some of the goals that you've got, short term, long term, lay it all out there for
Yes.
your business.
So for my business, my long-term goal is ultimately creating a community, a membership site where I'm actually diving into the community where they can be able to feel comfortable to ask certain questions, even if it's something they're struggling with, or hey, do you have any recommendations on this? I feel like people use Facebook, but you'll notice they'll do a lot of anonymous posts. So you're only able to help so much versus I feel like if a membership site is created for them and they feel supported, valued, everything is, trusted, no judgment, then they may be able to open up a little bit more and being able to direct them into, hey, have you spoken to your ombudsman or have you spoken to your command? What's your feeling on that? Have you tried these resources? And laying that out. So that's the ultimate. That's a big long term. More short term on my membership site is creating courses for military spouses that they can actually go and watch to focus on career development or go and watch to focus on how can I balance my life as a military spouse, as a military mom, or whatever the case may be. And they're able to take those courses on their time and they don't have to feel like they're sitting in the classroom. They have to keep their kids quiet. I want them to be able to pause and play so that it can fit in with their journey and with their time. So that's my short term.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's such an important part of, I'm going to say military spouses because that's
Mm-hmm.
who we are and who we serve. But really, I think any mom, stay-at-home mom, any caregiver, anybody, having the flexibility to attend to things when you need to attend to them.
Yes.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
brilliant and so important.
Thank you. Yeah, I found that, and this is just from, personal experience and being around other military spouses, there are resources out there for us that are, live or pre-recorded, but it's hard because you typically have to attend them. And if you have to attend it in person, do you have the childcare that you need to get there to attend it in person? If you're watching a live video, you can't pause it and you may not have access to replay it later. And so that's why I felt like my membership site would be very beneficial for spouses because again, okay, if you need to pause and walk away, pause and walk away. You'll get a reminder to come back later. Just again, make it look at it as self-care and then pick up where you left off on whatever it is that you need to that you're working on the membership site.
Yeah, I love that.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm cheering for you. That's
I
awesome.
appreciate it. Yes, it's been a struggle only because I'm still learning, right? I don't know everything about entrepreneurship, but don't um I don't believe in just constantly researching. I like to research and then do some more research and then do.
Yes.
And that way I
Yes.
don't get stuck with the idea that it has to be absolutely perfect before I launch it or before it's live because someone else could have the same idea. And then now they're out there already, and you don't want to kind of feel like, oh man, I should have did that. So
Yeah, and to that also, I will say for some people, you can analysis paralysis is the word
yes,
that the phrase that I have heard, and perfectionism you touched on. Girl, I relate to that one. I
yes,
have a hardcore history of
yes,
perfectionist tendencies. Those two, it's even more than the next
hmm
person will get it out if you're waiting and sitting on it, which
yeah,
is totally accurate. But and at what point do you stop and finally
right,
put it out, right? At what point have you done enough research and analysis? At what
right,
point is it finally perfect,
right.
right?
Good enough to
Obviously, we
be
know, yeah,
like,
perfection does not exist. But at what point do you go,
exactly.
oh, this is good. This is just where I want it. If you're a
hmm
perfectionist, you're not going to do that,
Mm-mm,
right? So
mm-mm.
you said two things that I think are so key. Do not get, and this is advice, right? The how,
Right.
okay, but how?
Yeah.
That we don't have the time today to dive into that, but I
Right.
think that is definitely something either one of us probably could guide people through. If somebody's like, yeah, I get stuck in perfectionism, don't do it. Great, got it. How do I make
Right.
that happen, right? We can help
Yeah.
you with that. Drop a comment, let somebody know, let us know. I need help with that. How do I do
Yes.
that? What does that look like in my real life?
Right.
We could totally help with that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Okay, so with that said,
hmm
how is there anything that we have not touched on before we start to wrap up here that you
Okay.
absolutely want people to know or you want to leave people with?
Oh yeah, so absolutely. So aside from the perfectionism and things of that nature, and what I do on my podcast, my platform, I have a podcast, I have a blog, I have a website, deskofanavy.com. And on there I also have a shop. And I like for the clothing or all the clothing that is on there is comfortable, but it also is kind of that empowerment, us wearing and rocking this lifestyle that we have. So if you want to check that out, feel free to do it too. It's something that will make you probably laugh and chuckle, but it's definitely relatable clothing um,
Yeah.
statements that are on there. And I'm not sure if you've checked it out before, Heather, but
I
some of
have
the
not
shirts
had the honor of
you
taking a
have
look at it, but I'm
not.
going to right after
Yes,
this. I'm
the
heading straight
shop.
there.
Some I have a couple of them I wear around outside when I go pick up my kids, and people say, "Oh my gosh, that's so true! Like I need that shirt. Where'd you get that shirt?" And I make it,
Yeah,
yeah, I make this shirt. So
I
that
love
would be
that.
the only other thing that I share. But feel free again to reach out, and if you have
Yeah.
questions, and again, like you said, put it in the comments. If it's, hey, how do you do this, or what would you be your recommendation here, or where do you go for this type of information? One of us, I'm sure, would be happy to help.
I mean, you're the resource queen. So
Yeah,
by all means, if somebody needs resources, there's
yeah,
a few as a milspouse entrepreneur that I definitely have I can help
yeah,
with. But as far as military life and all other areas, Reyna is your girl.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank
And I'm
you.
sure as far as you tell me, as far as
Yes.
milspouse entrepreneur stuff, are those also resources that you have available to share?
Yes, there
Okay,
are
there
there,
you
and
go.
typically, yeah, with the entrepreneurship, it's me being able to showcase other military spouses that have businesses because that's hey, we're all in this together. So I like to provide that type of information when it
Amazing.
comes to resources.
Yes. So if you need resources, Rena is your girl. Just ask and she will provide. And I'm
Yes,
sure knowing what I know about you, the researcher in you, that if you don't have an answer, you're the kind of person who can find an answer for
yes, I
somebody,
will get
guide them to
one.
somebody who has the answer, if nothing
Yes,
else.
yes.
That. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, you mentioned a few places that you show up. Definitely go check out Rena's blog, podcast. You're going to
Mhm.
find, I'm sure, so much, so many gems, just all of the great information that you could need. What is your favorite place to have people connect with you directly, though?
Directly, it would be Instagram. I'm on there constantly anyway. So if someone wants to reach out, direct message me for a question, they absolutely can. If they're not comfortable with Instagram or they don't have one, I do have a contact page directly on my website where you can go in and you can contact me.
Okay. And so nobody has to memorize anything because that makes things awkward. We're going to drop all of your links in the
Yes.
description. So anybody
Yes.
who wants to connect further, wants to get some more information from you, those will be there. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you so much for your time and all of
Thank
your
you,
brilliant
Heather.
wisdom that you shared with us. I really
I
appreciate it.
appreciate it.